Today we have a kanji recap, 10 kanjis related to the flesh radical. Let's start with meat. The kanji for meat has two potential etymology theories. One, that it is a pictogram of ribs of an animal's torso. Two, that it is a representation of a slice of meat. When the kanji for meat acts as a radical, it takes a simplified look. This radical can be found in the words liver, organ, and chest. Fun fact! Over the years, there has been some kanjis that have been corrupted and the radicals are not what they look like. The kanji meat can take two forms as a radical. One looks like moon and the other looks like evening. Therefore, it is always better to know the history so that the kanji meaning makes sense. The only reading you really need to remember is niku, which again it means meat. Another example is gyuniku, which means beef. The kanji meat can easily be confused with the kanji inside, so watch out for the differences. One last note, this kanji has 6 strokes and it is a JLPT M4 level, so next time you grill some meat, see if you can make it look like this kanji. And the history for today's kanji is the kanji for skin. So, let's get started. Skin, or the largest organ in the human body, has a pretty fascinating kanji. This kanji is divided into two parts. The left is the radical for flesh, while the right is table. Wait, what? Yes, that's right. As you might guess, it helps with the phonetic reading ki, but also some say it represented a surface, which might connect to the idea of skin as a covering of the body. Do not confuse. Skin and table have the same phonetic character, but the radicals are different. Skin has, of course, flesh, while table has a tree. Kun reading is hada. The examples are hada or skin and hadagi, underwear. The sentence is Fuji no oki saizu hadagi, woman's large size underwear. Fun fact, today's kanji hada is a common and casual term, often used for beauty care and cosmetics. There is another word for skin, and that is hifu. This one is more formal and is used for medical care and biology. The on reading is ki, coming from its phonetic character. The example is kime, or texture. This kanji has 6 strokes, and in this case, it will be helpful to know it if you ever need to do some beauty shopping. Today's kanji stomach is the one that works hard every time you eat, and its history is more than just a digestion. Let's dive in. This kanji has 2 components. The bottom is, do you remember? Yes, that's right, the radical for flesh. And the top is, wait, is that the kanji for rice field? Well, not really. Originally, it was 4 simple dots that signified food particles. Eventually, it was simplified into what looks like rice field. The on reading is I. The examples are I or stomach and yen or gastritis. The sentence is Kyusei yen wa nannichi de naorimasu ka? How many days does it take for acute gastritis to heal? Fun fact, the kanji stomach is one of the simplest organ kanji you will learn. You can compare it to other organ kanjis such as pancreas or spleen. Fun fact number 2. Students tend to confuse today's kanji with the kanji hara. Although they technically have the same meaning in the dictionary, today's kanji is the actual organ, so it is a word commonly used at the doctor's office, while hara is a more general term that you can even use when you're hungry by saying harahetta. Do not confuse a stomach with tatami. As you can see, the key difference lies in the radical for flesh, which are usually found in organ kanjis as it is the stomach. This kanji has 9 strokes, and it might become the very first kanji organ that you will learn, so give it a try. Ready to power up your mind? Because today we have the smartest organ of all, the brain. Let's look at the original kanji first. On the left-hand side, we have one that we practiced before, the radical for flesh. On the right-hand side, we have two parts. The top was hair, while the bottom was a fontanelle, that is the bones of the skull of an infant. The original kanji then got modified, and it no longer had the shape of fontanelle, but of an adult's skull. And hair got simplified into three lines that look like the katakana tsu. Fun fact, the concept of training your brain is popular in Japan, with various puzzles and games designed to keep your mind sharp. The on reading is no. The examples are no or brain and noushi or brain death. The sentence is no shuyo bui to hataraki, major parts of the brain and their functions. Do not confuse brain with worry. Main difference lies in the radical. Brain has flesh, while worry has a heart, which makes sense. This kanji has 11 strokes, and it definitely looks like a cool kanji once you learn how it was formed. It sometimes surprises me how much thought went into creating kanjis. Are you taking good care of this awesome organ? Because today the kanji liver will be the king. The left-hand side is the radical for flesh. Yes, I hope you already knew it. The right-hand side is very simple, as it was chosen as the phonetic character kan. However, some theories say that the right side element originated from a shield, giving the meaning of strength. Perhaps also the reason why this kanji is used in sentences related to courage, as it is the case of kimo ga suwaru, to have guts. The kun reading is kimo. The examples are kimo or liver and kimodameshi or test of courage. Fun fact, in traditional Chinese medicine, the liver is considered the governing organ for all vital energy flow and the storage of blood. It also plays a vital role in regulating emotions, particularly anger, and it is associated with the wood element. The on reading is kan. The examples are kanzo or liver and kanjin or crucial. The sentence is kanzo no hataraki ga yowamaru to. What happens when your liver function weakens? Do not confuse liver with eaves. As you can see, the liver has the radical flesh, while eaves has the radical for cart. This kanji has 7 strokes, and this might be a good time to remind you not to drink too much alcohol if you don't want to be forced to learning this kanji. What is the one thing that remains long after we're gone? Not our voice, not our thoughts, but something far more solid, and that is our bones. Let's break it down. The bottom is the element for meat. On top, that's the part that matters most. It is the representation of a skeleton. In ancient scripts, it literally showed a skull. And like this, these two components, skull and meat, form the kanji bone. Fun fact, the concept of bone in Japanese is often associated with hard work or effort. For example, honeori means exertion or hard work, literally bone-breaking work. The kun reading is hone. The example is hone or bone. The sentence is hone no namae to shikumi kototen. Encyclopedia of bone names and structures. The on reading is kotsu. The examples are kosetsu or fracture and gaikotsu or skeleton. Do not confuse bone with slippery. Funny enough, the kanji slippery is liquid plus bone. Ouch, that must hurt. So the next time you see this kanji, remember, it is not just another kanji. It is the representation of what's left when everything else fades. You were once too small to speak, too fragile to walk, but someone carried you, fed you, waited. That's what the kanji raise brings to you. Let's break it down. The bottom is the radical for flesh, while the top, can you guess? It is actually the kanji for child, but it is upside down. There are two theories for this combination. One came from the original kanji, where we can see the mother giving birth, so the top being the baby and the bottom the womb. The second theory is that the baby's flesh is growing as he grows. Regardless of which theory is the correct one, the child was born and will be nurtured and will grow. The kun reading is soda. The example is sodateru, or to raise. The sentence is 私という植物を育てることに決めた. I decided to grow the plant that is me. Fun fact, this kanji can be seen in the word ikumen, which comes from raise and men. It refers to fathers who actively participate in childcare. It reflects changing societal views on parenting roles. The on reading is iku. The example is kyouiku, education, and ikuji, childcare. Do not confuse raise with stature. They are both related to flesh, so the radical makes sense. But remember that raise has the child upside down. Behind every person, there is someone who chose to sodateru, to raise us. Someone who stayed so we could grow. Imagine a soldier standing before his commander. He takes a deep breath, bows, and says, I will obey. That is the core of today's kanji, which means obey or clothes. But how did clothes and obedience end up sharing the same kanji? Let's find out. But before that, let's break down this kanji, and we get 3 parts. The left is not a moon. It actually came from the kanji boat. The middle is a person kneeling, and the bottom is a hand. Putting these 3 together, we can see the idea of a hand subjugating a kneeling person to control or ride the boat, and therefore taking on the meaning of to obey. But why this kanji also means clothes? If you think about it, your clothes are what your body obeys every day. They wrap around you, shape how you move, and even express your place in society. Uniforms, suits, robes, all signs of submission to a role, which is why obey and clothes go together. Fun fact, today's character is one of the most common kanji you will see in daily life, appearing on laundry detergent, clothing tags, pharmacy signs, and department store floors. The on reading is fuku. The examples are fuku, or clothes, fukuju, obedience, seifuku, or uniform. Do not confuse clothes with report. The key thing here is the radical. As you can see, they are different. Although, the funny thing is that if you look for the radical of obey, you will see it as a moon in the dictionary, which of course, after so many changes, that's what it looks like now. So, next time you put on your clothes, remember, this kanji started as a symbol of submission, not fashion, but over time, it became what we use today to express who we are. What we wear, in a way, is what you obey. You know that sharp pain that hits your hip when you're old enough? In Japanese, that part of your body, your waist or hip, is what today's kanji is all about. Let's break it down. On the left, we had the radical for flesh. This side was added later in the kanji, as what you see on the right side was the original kanji for hip or waist. This right side can also be broken into 2 parts. The bottom is the popular kanji for woman, while the top were 2 hands pointing at the midsection. So, in summary, this character shows a woman holding her hands to her waist or hip, highlighting its function as central, essential part of the entire body. Fun fact, in traditional Japanese culture, standing with hands on hips can be considered rude or potentially aggressive. It is generally perceived as a strong or assertive posture, which is often avoided in a culture that values humility and indirect communication. The kun reading is koshi. The example is koshi or hip, waist. We also have koshi kakeru or to sit down. The on reading is yo. The example is yosu, which is lower back pain. Do not confuse hip with smoke. This is another great example of learning through radicals. Hip has the flesh, while smoke has fire. The kanji koshi reminds us that the waist is where strength and flexibility meet, the essential part of our movement and balance. So next time your lower back starts to ache, you'll know your body's essential connection is asking for a little respect. Have you ever felt someone turn their back on you? That feeling of betrayal or distance? Today's kanji captures that moment, not just physically, but emotionally. Let's break it down. At the top, you see the kanji for north, but here it doesn't mean north. This character originally showed two people turning their backs to each other. Now, below that, we have the radical for flesh. Now, if you put it together, you literally get the back of the body, or to turn one's back. It is both anatomical and emotional at the same time. Fun fact! Today's kanji is the core of discussing height. A tall person is sega takai. A short person is sega hikui, showing how central the back is to perceive height. The kun readings are se, sei, and somu. The actual region of the body is senaka, the back. The verb seo means to carry on one's back. A sebiru is a Western business suit, and to disobey someone is somoku. Do not confuse back with raise. I'm sure you already noticed the radical for each, but the top is different. Today we have two people on their back, while raise has a child. So the next time someone turns their back to you, remember, in Japanese, the same kanji carries centuries of meaning, conflict, separation, and the quiet strength of standing on your own. Because sometimes turning your back is how you move forward. Now, I got a challenge for you. What is the meaning of this word? Type it in the comments.